Tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora and welcome to another Manuanui live stream. My name is Simon and today I have three guests, all from the Centre of Movement, joining us from Burleigh in Australia. We have from your right of screen, Steve, Nicole and Emily. And we'll be talking about the Centre of Movement as an organisation and their recent expansion back into New Zealand. But firstly, I do just want to acknowledge the pink t-shirt and ribbon for Breast Cancer Awareness Day. We had a nice shared morning tea and fundraised some money today in the office. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out. But yes, today we are talking to the team from the Centre of Movement. So I would like to hand it over to the team to say hello and introduce themselves. Good afternoon.
Hi, this is Steve. I'm an exercise physiologist and co-founder and director of Centre of Movement.
And I'm Lawrence, so I'm also an exercise physiologist. I'm a clinic lead here in Burleigh and I've just gotten back from the opening 6 months of our Christchurch clinic.
I'm Emily. I'm an occupational therapist and also founder of Centre of Movement.
Simon speaking. Thank you very much, team. So for those people who are completely new to the Centre of Movement, let's go right back to the beginning. Talk to us about your personal experience, your studies, and what led you to founding the first version of the Centre of Movement.
Yeah, so Emily speaking. It was probably started in New Zealand. I was working at the Whangarei Hospital in the stroke rehabilitation ward. I'd studied as an occupational therapist, and in that unit, I was able to work through a 12-week program, a really wonderful program with many adults over 50 that had had a stroke, and we were getting such wonderful results. And as I was sitting in the ICU to start their journey, I was also seeing the babies that had had a brain injury at birth, a stroke at birth, getting sent home, not having any follow-up. I knew that neuroplasticity was at its finest at that point, and there was no sort of follow-up for them and their journey. And so it wasn't until I came back to Australia and I knew that we had the funding here and the NDIS to be able to start Centre of Movement back in the day, and the kids kept coming and coming, and it wasn't until it came full circle where we started to have hundreds of families from New Zealand coming to our Burleigh clinic that we knew we had to get it back up into New Zealand and make it full circle. So that's my founding story of Centre of Movement. And
So my name is Steve. Sorry, this is Steve speaking. I originally worked in chronic pain, and then Emily and I are husband and wife. So Emily's been working in pediatrics for almost 20 years now. So I never saw myself working in pediatrics. I was in chronic pain. I kind of fell into the industry, and I can't see myself ever doing anything else. Just kind of discovered something I was good at with having no idea. I'm the guy behind probably all the equipment. I've got a little addiction to equipment, so we use TheraSuit, universal exercise unit, robotic walkers. If you take a look around any of the clinics, all that equipment's probably come from my idea. So yeah.
And Lauren speaking. So probably coming before Centre of Movement, my training was also more in adults. My area of interest had always been in neurological rehab, but much more in sort of spinal injury and later acquired injuries. And it was just, I had no idea that we started so early. And it wasn't until I saw how young some of these kids came in. I was seeing children that had had no rehab that were now 21 and finally eligible. So coming to this space and seeing what a difference it makes starting when we are small and when we haven't got habits built yet and our bodies are still so pliable, like I wouldn't change it for the world.
Simon speaking. Wonderful. Sounds like quite the experienced team. And I resonate with what you said, Steve, about falling into the industry. Something about pediatrics and disability. A lot of people just kind of find their way in and then never end up leaving. And it's definitely the same with myself. I had no idea about what was possible here in New Zealand with disability, and I'd never want to leave the industry now. Emily, you use the word neuroplasticity. For those people who may not know too much about what that word means, explain to us why it is so key for the sort of work you do to occur so early with, or as early as possible with those, our kids that have injuries or who've got a disability.
Yeah. So usually we're seeing kids that have either had a brain injury or a chromosomal condition that's making a movement or those first movements of life difficult. And so a lot of the neuroplasticity is that children need hundreds and thousands of hours of moving on the floor, finding their hands, finding how to lift their head, rolling, coming up into 4-point. If you think of a child's development for that whole first year of life and how much time and effort and floor time goes into that. And so some of the kiddos that we're seeing don't have those conditions or that movement exploration to be able to get those hundreds and thousands of hours. And so as part of therapy, we're looking at how to provide the handling, the techniques, the exposure, so that they can find this independent movement in themselves and then be able to almost find another pathway in their brain, like finding that repetition of movement and that novel movement and that exhilaration of, that locus of control that they can play with their toy, they can look at mum or dad, or they can start exploring for themselves. So it's this wonderful opportunity that we get to provide all the conditions for their innate blueprint of wanting to move and allowing them to do that. So once you give a child, like, that's why I think we all get addicted to pediatrics. Once you give them like an inch or like, hey, have you thought about doing it this way? And I'll help you support that. There's nothing else. We just saw it this morning with a kid for the first time being able to kind of like, he's 2 and opening his hand and being able to play. And he was just so excited and looking at mum like, can you believe I've done that? And that's been, trying to get him in the position to facilitate that movement for, 6 months and things like that. So it's that, I think exposure and the environment and getting their brains ready and up for movement. If either of you have anything.
Totally. And I think, we know this about most chronic health conditions is the sooner you address something, the better outcomes are, the more you leave things. So if you were to have a stroke as an adult, you would want to get into rehab as soon as possible. So a lot of our kiddos, rather than going down that wait and see approach, we are trying to get there as soon as possible, that if it is a birth injury, you want to start as close to birth as possible.
Yeah, and it's kind of counterintuitive to what the medical model has been doing with the wait and see and things like that. And these children have these very pliable brains that we know that there is this kind of pruning that happens. Like, so if you don't use something, you often lose it, or they're stuck in these reflexive movements that you can see as a therapist that gets them frustrated. And so being able to provide that early intervention is just so key. And also what we've found for the whole family unit and for the whole community, is a better outcome for everyone.
Yeah, this is Stephen speaking. So just reiterating what the girls have said, it's exposing them to movement, repetition, and imagine we've got so many pieces of different equipment. If something's not working for them, we've got the ability to go, okay, how are we going to problem solve to get the kiddo moving in the way that we want to them, or we want for them in the way that they're comfortable. So it's exposure to the environment, to the vestibular system, to repetition, and just getting them comfortable in movement. As we know, like cognition is directly related to movement. So it all comes back to repetition, movement.
Simon speaking, and I love that this conversation is flowing nicely because you just said something, Steve, that I think we should expand on, and that's the vestibular system. A lot of people may not ever hear of this, or they kind of know what it is just through experiencing it themselves at normal progression as a human. But for people who need additional help, what is so important about the vestibular system, and why is it a key part of what you practice at the Centre of Movement?
Stephen speaking. So your vestibular system is your body to understand where your body is in space, right? So if the kiddos don't know where they are in space, then they're always going to be fearful, or they're not confident in any kind of movement. So it's about gradually exposing the kiddos to all the different planes of movement. And then from there, they're going to get comfortable in their space. Their vestibular system is going to be working. And there's many different ways you can work with the vestibular system. There's something, fun and functional, like using a swing. there's exposing them to gravity. Yeah, there's lots of different methods, but yeah, gradually exposing them vestibular system, assist with neuroplasticity. Did you want to say something?
No.
Yeah, the main part is like getting them aware of where they are in space and not being fearful for the vestibular system, and that, you know, part of the brain speaks to so many other parts that they need to have for speech, for language, for eye tracking, for, you know, it's just like the most complementary of all the modalities that we use. So yeah.
Simon speaking. Thank you, team. So what can people expect if they are wanting to work with you? And maybe they might be a bit fearful that they're getting into quite an intense, strenuous activity for their child, and they're really wanting to make sure that it's a gradual and supportive process. But I imagine, like you're talking about, there's lots of play and fun involved in what you're doing, and it's not just what people might consider as the kind of medical model of really rigid movements and strenuous activity. Just, you know, what is it like for people experiencing the support that you offer?
So probably Lauren speaking. I think that's a reasonable and very common concern and question that we get. And myself as a practitioner, when I first came into this space, seeing intensive therapy, I remember being told 3 hours a day, and I couldn't believe it, because I would never do a session that long with, you know, myself in the gym or even a sports training session. But it was pointed out to me, when you watch a neurotypical 1-year-old and how much they move, the moment they're walking, they're not stopping. You know, these kids, that's their occupation, is a full day of play and exploration. So we are really mimicking what is a natural part of development as well. Through our intake process all the way to completion, we do pretty heavily involved care with the family in terms of goal setting and modalities, and then complementary services like speech pathology or hydrotherapy, and just making sure that we're approaching both that child and that family to meet their goals in a way that's suitable based on, you know, their personal history, but also their medical and therapy history as well, to make sure we're meeting them where they're at.
Emily speaking. And the other beautiful thing that we've found, especially in New Zealand, is that we're able to run these intensives in blocks. And so everyone's starting on day one together. We all know that the second week is a little bit harder when fatigue kind of sets in, and they're really kind of exploring those new movements. And the group dynamic and the community that's starting, well, that has evolved. And, you know, we'll have like veteran, you know, parents that might be on their sort of 6th intensive, and they've come over to Australia, and they're helping like the new person that's there for the first time. And we've got Facebook support groups and things like that they can offer up questions and, you know, equipment as well. It's been a bit harder to source in New Zealand. And so someone might be saying, I'm coming for an intensive, and do you have this? And can I borrow this wheelchair? And can I do this? And so all of that kind of connection that's even coming before we start has been a lovely adjunct to what we're doing in New Zealand as well. And then often they'll be the support person in, you know, a few months' time, because we're looking at trying to do maybe like 2 or 3 intensives. A lot of people are traveling because they might only be able to access sort of that 1 hour a month, or, you know, once every 2 weeks of therapy and things like that. And it's lovely to have, you know, an intensive therapy block as an adjunct to that, so we can talk to their therapists as well prior to them arriving, see what they're working on already in their sessions. We're providing like a handover of all the exercises, everything that we've sort of worked on, that they can continue. And so hopefully starting to create some little communities that are not just in the centres as well.
Stephen speaking. And every program, there's no one size fits all. For each kiddo, each program is specific towards their needs and their goals. So also something that really helps is that we've got occupational therapy, physiotherapy, and exercise physiology. So you're using 3 modalities or 3 professions, or allied health, sorry. And then from there, we have all the practitioners have a number of different skills and modalities under their belt, which then assist with the ease of running an intensive.
Yeah. But to go back to your question, because I think we've all demonstrated, like the kids actually, like, you know, they're coming in and a lot of them want to move, you know, they're really like, you know, the kids in today are like, I want to be able to do a skip, and I want to be able to hop like all my peers and things like that. You can see the kiddos wanting to reach for their toys and things like that. So it doesn't have to be that the kid has to be at a point that they have endurance and they have the stamina to do the 3 hours a day. Like these are all wrapped up in the package, that we can see where a child's at, how much exposure they've had, and how we're sort of grading that movement for them. But you'll often find that we can use hydrotherapy as well, to, especially in Rotorua, the geothermal pools have just been such a game changer in the recovery of the kids. And you know, and they also get motivation because we've designed our program so everyone's in the same room together most of the time. So they'll be seeing, you know, this little kiddo working hard and this one doing this, or this one having fun, or they'll want to kind of join in with each other, and they're all, so supportive of each other's journeys. So that's been lovely too.
Simon speaking, that's awesome. We have a question from Nicole. She would like to know, what is the youngest person that has, what is the youngest child that can access your centre?
Yeah, I don't think there is an age specific. Usually, you know, by the time a child, if they've had a brain injury, is coming out of NICU at, you know, sort of 5 months, 6 months and things like that, we've seen them from that point on. And that's why we're talking about grading. You know, if you're calling it intensive therapy, it might be that these babies are coming in for 2 hours, 3 sessions a week type thing, that it can be modified. And our school aged kids can be doing the 3 hours a day plus hydro 5 days a week. So there's no limit. At that age, it's really about educating family on handling and positioning, and again, like I was saying, that environment that we can help their child to thrive, and also giving them access to a number of other parents in the room and that community to wrap around and support them as well. So because often that's, you know, the most difficult part of the journey is that very early stage, and you don't want them to be sitting at home and wondering, and parents, because of services like you're providing and the internet now, are very clued on and are very educated in like what's going on and what's available. So it's just lovely that we can start providing that closer to home.
Lauren speaking. So probably the youngest that I've sort of been connected with was, we had a bub that was only 9 days old, I believe, at the time, and they were still in intensive care. And a lot of our conversations leading up to our first session, which was closer to 6 months, was all about, you know, postpartum options to support mum, you know, different options on how to get in-home care for when they were discharged, different breastfeeding positionings, and just all that supportive care, so that even though we weren't ready yet to be seen in clinic, it was, you know, having someone to ask questions and develop trust with before we got to that point too.
Simon speaking. Thank you, team. I have another question from Ella. She said, I've seen Trexo on your social media. Can you please explain this more?
There you go. I'll get it running.
We'll get it.
I'll just go. This is Stephen speaking. I'm going to let Lauren talk about it, and I'm going to get it running in the background so everyone can see how it works.
So just as Steve sets it up today, just behind us, so this is one of our larger models of the Trexo. So we have one in New Zealand and one in Australia. It is a wearable exoskeleton device that sits on top of Rift and Pacer, which a lot of families would be familiar with. And its main role is to support gait function, and then they've actually found a number of other unexpected benefits along the way, from head control to bowel regularity, blood flow and circulation. And we're really using it adjunct to the traditional method of gait training, which is, say, 2 therapists and a therapy assistant and a hoist and a treadmill, and just allows children to experience walking where they're at, both physically and cognitively at the moment.
This is Stephen speaking. So you can hear the Trexo moving in the background. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know if we need to get any closer. But this is coming from someone that's done manual gait training for approximately 10 years. So after a session with manual gait training, you're using, you know, a level of different sports, whether it's a universal exercise unit or a ceiling hoist or a light gait, and you might get anywhere between 100 and 200 steps, and it's very physical on both the kiddo and the practitioner. And now with the Trexo, you can get complete hip alignment. You can get a heel toe strike. If the kiddos have any contractures, you can adjust the range of motion for movement from the knee and movement from the hip. So it can be specific for each kiddo. And at the end of a session, you can get anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000 steps in alignment. So I kind of see it as neuroplasticity at its finest.
And this is Emily speaking. It can also come off. It's just raining today, but usually this can come off and a child can be walking around. And I feel like that's been the biggest motivator for movement, to be able to see that they can walk with their brother or their sister, or walk their dog, and really get their brain into the idea that I move my legs and I go forward, has been such a game changer as well. So it's a lovely piece of tech that will be used as part of their therapy.
Yeah, and this is Stephen speaking. So this is the larger Trexo. So we've sent the smaller Trexo over to New Zealand. So it's currently in Rotorua, and it's coming to Wellington for the pop-up in June, and then it's going to head over to Dunedin pop-up and then Christchurch. So it's doing its trip around New Zealand from the North Island to the south. And the idea was that it just being giving families the opportunity to experience robotic technology all over New Zealand and not having to travel.
Yeah.
I'll pause that now.
Simon speaking. That's awesome. So you did mention a few locations in New Zealand, and part of bringing you on today is because we wanted to make sure people across New Zealand knew that your services are available if they were interested. So let's go over that again. Tell us where you have a permanent site in New Zealand and those pop-up locations and dates, please.
Yeah.
Emily speaking. So we have a permanent location in Rotorua. We currently have the Trexo there. Then we are going to Wellington, where we'll have a pop-up just north of Wellington from the 1st to the 19th of June. And then following that, we've got another clinic in Christchurch. We decided to have 2 permanent clinics in New Zealand rather than one big flagship clinic, so that families could travel by car, because we know that they're often traveling with equipment, bathing, mobility, medications, feeding. And so we wanted to make it a bit more accessible, that you didn't always have to fly in New Zealand. Plus your domestic flights are very expensive. So after we're finishing in Wellington, the Trexo will go down to Christchurch, which we have another permanent clinic in Riccarton. And then Lauren's going to be, heading down to Dunedin from July the 20th to the 31st.
30th, in the last 2 weeks, exactly.
Yeah, 20th to the 31st. So we've got one at the pop-up at the beginning of June and at the end of July. So hopefully by that stage, there's been a number of families that have said, can you come? And if any family is ever interested in doing a pop-up as well, it's sort of like 4 families getting together and going, we really need your services here. And then we make as much as we can the travel and access possible. So if you are listening and you've got ideas and things like that, get in contact. Yeah.
Simon speaking. Also, all I can say, Lauren, is I hope you've got warm clothing heading to Dunedin, coming from Australia in the middle of winter. Braver than most. So let's talk about some of the examples of people that you've worked with. And we recently just did a story on Kiara, who's a Manawanui customer that you've spent a lot of time with. Talk to us about your experience supporting Kiara and her grandmother Angela, and give the viewers an idea of what it might be like for them to go through something similar.
Yeah, you go.
You can go. It started from when she came to Australia.
Yeah, I'll tell I can tell a quick story. Sorry, this is Tim speaking. Angela and Kiara arrived in Burleigh, and I think their whole direction was their therapy team was trying to get a wheelchair for Kiara, saying she's never going to be independently walking. I didn't see it quite like that, and the whole team got behind Kiara. And how many steps we got Kiara taking, a number of independent steps by the end of that intensive. So we saw a lot of ability, with Kiara, and with a lot of work and a lot of equipment and all the practitioners rallying behind, yeah, we were able to get Kiara up and walking, and now she is taking regular independent steps and walking with a quad stick
I just
from
saw
a wheelchair. Yeah.
Emily speaking. I just
Sorry.
think I saw her without quad sticks.
Oh, without.
Taking maybe 5 steps or something that Ange was showing us the other day. But it was just more access within the school environment and what they were able to support. And so it was lovely that Ange, believed that Kiara was capable of more and really, traveling to another country.
Yeah.
To a whole other place that she'd never been, coming with Kiara by herself. And so then, Lauren, I don't know if you want to speak to now, like Kiara's now accessing regular therapy at our Christchurch clinic. Lauren's been the clinic lead at Christchurch and
so Lauren speaking. So I guess I got to see Kiara at the beginning of her journey, and then when they've gone back to New Zealand and coming and being part of the opening there, I've now got to sort of fast forward and be one of her regular weekly practitioners, which has been quite amazing to see just that follow on and really see what happens when at the end of the day, the children want to put in the work. The families are just as committed as they've always been, but the difference being having practitioners and team that have the same belief in that child and their abilities, and having that safe place to go. To the point where she's certainly not the first or the last child that now feels comfortable giving you a bit of attitude and letting you know thoughts on if what you're doing is boring or she'll tell you if it's not hard enough. And that's that really maturing and knowing that we're on the same team and this isn't just prescriptive reading off a table or reading off a card or following a policy. This is about meeting an individual where they're at and creating a relationship that spans multiple years and will move with her through development.
Simon speaking. Thank you, team. So we've got a few minutes left. I just want to give you the opportunity to talk about avenues of access. We talked about it previously before the live stream started around funding avenues. I mean, within individualised funding, it's something that we would love to support Manawanui customers using their IF. But what are some of the other common ways people access your supports through government funding in New Zealand?
Lauren speaking. So our families sort of use all of their different government options and ACC as well. Every family is a little bit different, just depending on what other services they already have available, and also depending on if they're rural or if they're living in a city-based population. But typically going through their plan managers, they're able to access us quite easily. Probably the most successful way we found is to connect families with other families who have gone through the process. So we often have a long list of parents who would love to speak to families that aren't sure yet about not just how to access costs, but what they're getting for their money, and helping to make that decision, because we know that it is a big outlay. And speaking to people that are unbiased and have gone through it, I tend to find more valuable than us just as practitioners explaining it as well.
Yeah. And Emily speaking, I know there's been some opportunities through your organisation as well as on our end, we also see a need. So we're starting a charity called Collective Movement that will be up and running soon. And hopefully there's been, a lot of families that are wanting to help out. And so that'll be coming soon too for access and hopefully another Trexo.
Simon speaking, wonderful. So if you're a Manawanui customer and you're watching this wanting to get in touch, the process would be to reach out to the Centre of Movement team, talk about what might make sense in terms of support, get a letter of support so that when you come to us to seek prior approval, we've already got that information and it's a lot easier for us to support your funding to be used for people like yourselves. What is the best way to reach out? Is it through Facebook, website? What is it for you, team?
Yeah, Emily speaking, probably through email, through the website. We've got at the back end of the website, contact us. Yep. Helen and Sharon, our admin team, then, got all the info.
Yep, Rotorua at centreofmovement.co.nz and Christchurch at centreofmovement.co.nz.
Yeah.
Simon speaking, wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you all. Do you have any final words of encouragement for those people who might be considering reaching out to the Centre of Movement?
Yeah, Emily speaking, and they don't have to do a full intensive. We do lots of meet and greets. You can come to the centre and have a look around and have a look at the equipment and things like that. It's not a full commitment as you're coming in, or come for regular therapy as well. So just reach out, even if you're curious and you want to see, or you just want to connect to our families. The door's open for all of that.
Yeah.
We actually have a community event this Friday for families in Christchurch as well, just celebrating some of our mums and grandmas who are supporting some of our young ones as well. So we've got a lot of new faces coming to that as well. So if you're in the area, please come and say hi.
Otherwise, connect to us on socials and you can see what's happening and all the different events that are on. And be lovely to reach out.
Simon speaking. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, team. I would love to have you back on if there's any more announcements or new developments with the Centre of Movement. I think you guys do a wonderful job for our disabled whānau out there. So, if you're interested, please do reach out to them. I hope you all have a lovely evening, and I will see you all again, same time, same place next week. Ka kite.